prisoner, where he escaped to around the Wailing Woods area, just kind of made a volcano appear and just destroyed that whole biome up there. And yeah, so now there's a volcano. And the same unnamed government agency starts setting up small dig sites around the map, just trying to investigate what's happening. And they set up 3 dig sites, but the main one that they set up is at Loot Lake, where they find this huge metal vault. And once they unearth the vault, 5 floating keys start appearing around the map. And it was like player interactable, and basically every time the players interacted with it, they would get close to Loot Lake. And once all 5 keys were inserted into the vault, it started the unvaulting event, which basically players were able to go down into the vault, and they were able to unvault a weapon, basically bring back a weapon that wasn't in the game. And as you can see, many people actually overlook this, but this right here, that's the 0 point that the visitor was looking for earlier. It's basically a pure energy source and can like power the whole island basically. And the helmet on top of the table, that's Singularity's helmet. She's basically like the protector of the 0 point. She becomes important in the story next season. But basically after we unvault whatever weapon we did, we sprouted out from the vault, and we saw that the volcano just started erupting almost immediately, hitting 3 places, including Retail Row, Tilted Towers, and Polar Peak, which is where the Ice King's castle was. It didn't hit Polar Peak, but it hit the iceberg, which led to a crack. And yeah, here's the start of the season, end of the season, mainly looking at Loot Lake, how it turns from the really peaceful area to just the vault. In season 9, the future is yours. The Tilted Towers turn into Neo Tilted, and Retail Row turned into Mega Mall, as Singularity actually helped the Islanders using the 0 point to just reconstruct the yeah.
Sorry, did you say Neo Tilted?
Yeah, Neo Tilted.
Neo Tilted Towers?
Neo, it was just Neo Tilted, yeah.
Oh, makes sense. Go ahead.
Sorry. And yeah, using the 0 point energy just kind of fixed the buildings and everything. But as these were being reconstructed, Polar Peak was still cracking due to the due to the eruptions from the last season, and it revealed an eye, a monster's eye, which happened to be the Devourer. The Devourer breaks free, taking the Polar Peak castle with it, and just dives into the ocean. It just swings around, and as the season approaches to an end, it just keeps appearing more and more and more. And so the Singularity partners with Imagined Order, or IO, which many believe to be the secret government agency from previous seasons, and they decide to build a defense mechanism against this Devourer, which is Mecha Team Leader. It's just a giant metal teddy bear. And as the season approaches to an end, it's the final showdown between the Devourer and Mecha Team Leader. And they basically fight each other, and it seems like the Mecha Team Leader won, when all of a sudden the Devourer comes back out of nowhere and starts just beating up the Mecha Team Leader. And the Mecha Team Leader has no choice but to grab the 0 point, crack it open, and use its power to defeat the Devourer. And in order to do that, they actually went into Neo Tilted and grabbed the Singularity statue, which turned out to be a sword, and defeated the Devourer. But it left the 0 point exposed, and as the season came to an end, 0 point just kept cracking more and more and more. And it started like kind of having weird time effects around the vault. And as you can see, Loot Lake mainly, and especially the volcano turning into a pressure plant. And now Season X, Out of Time. So as the battle was going on and the 0 point was left exposed, another member of the Seven, called the Scientist, came in and set up a time bubble around the 0 point. And the 0 point was also bringing back like different realities, which is why the meteor also returned, which is also how the Scientist came onto the island. And he set up time bubbles around it, so the meteor hadn't hit Dusty Depot yet and turned into a divot, and the 0 point had not exploded yet. But the time was still moving. It wasn't moving normally, but it was moving very slowly, but it was still moving. So the 0 point was basically a ticking time bomb, and the Seven had to do something. And only later did they realize that IO was actually manipulating them, basically like their sworn enemies. We're manipulating them into saving the island. And the scientists' plan basically contain the 0 point from exploding or imploding, and build rift beacons around the island to bring the other members of the Seven to help contain the 0 point. And so Gotham City came in, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so he built all these rift beacons. Only one failed out of the 8, I believe he built. And the scientist also starts, he plans to make a rocket and upgrade his armor at the beginning of the season, but then he actually starts building the rocket very similar to the one that the Visitor made back in season 4. And he finishes making it just in time for the end of them, as he contacts the other members of the Seven that they don't have much time. They have to do it perfectly or else everything will just go to waste. And the Visitor left these tapes, or sorry, the scientist left these tapes to remind them of what their mission was. And so as the end event launched, the rocket, very similar to season 4 as the Visitor's rocket, just kind of launched into the sky and started rifting around the island. And once all the other 7, or the other 6 members of the 7 came in through the rift beacons, they started kind of going around the meteor and just going like around and around and around and gaining speed until time around the meteor resumed back to normal, going into the huge rift that the 7 had caused using the rockets. And then they spawn above Loot Lake, very high above, as one of the rockets oscillates onto the 0 point, which is what the Visitor wanted to do back in season 4, and just kind of launches straight, like itself straight into the time bubble at Loot Lake, causing all the players that were watching to just kind of lift up into the sky as like a zero gravity effect took control. And then the other 6 rockets led the meteor through the rift towards the 0 point, escaping at the last second as the meteor hits the time bubble and just kind of pushes through the time bubble, hitting the 0 point, causing a spaghettification into a black hole. But as the black hole was happening, there was random numbers that were popping out. And these numbers actually correlated with the scientist's tapes that he left before. And the numbers represented the following sentences: I was not alone, others were outside the loop. This was not calculating, the nothing is now inevitable. And FORTNITE was basically unplayable for the next 2 days. And yeah, there's like all these different changes around the map. But yeah, thank you for watching. This is me from Dr. Games because I used to live in North Carolina.
So what made you choose FORTNITE to present on?
I used to be, I don't want to say addicted, but addicted to FORTNITE back in like middle school and like high school. And then I still play FORTNITE with my brothers and my cousins and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I used to be much more interested in the storyline, but then it started just going like haywire, and it's very confusing. But back then, the storyline was still very simple, and so yeah, there's now like a time traveling vampire, so
Okay,
it's very
cool.
confusing. Yeah. Any other questions here?
But it does like, it continues past the point that you talked about, like
Yeah.
today.
The storyline continues on
okay.
until where it is today, which is like season 26, chapter 4 to season 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when does Travis Scott become canon?
Chapter 2, season 2. Yeah.
What are the leading theories on Kevin's origin?
I think just mainly the rift caused by the Visitor's rocket, leaving the whole crack in the sky, which then alerted the cube's origins, which is the last reality, which is introduced later in chapter 2, that where the 0 point was, because many people were at the 0 point, as you saw, the Devourer was, and so was the 7 and IO. And so, being this pure energy source, the last reality sent down the cube and to track down where the 0 point was, so that they could start an invasion, which they did not do until chapter 2, season 8. So yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, great.